Alrighty, good evening. This is Mr. Steele, and I'm here to work with you on Term 3 Standard Quiz Question number 1, question pertaining to the Lines chapter, Chapter 7 in your textbook. So, the purpose of this video, assuming that it actually works, which isn't a given because this is trial number 4, is for you to have an opportunity to actually see someone work through the problem using the strategies that I used last term with you, as well as get a couple examples and some background information on the question. So hopefully this works. Otherwise, this is going to have been a long night, won't it? So, beginning off, Term 3 Standard Quiz Question number 1 reads, given the slope and a point, write the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b form. So our goal is an equation that's written in the form y equals mx plus b. Nothing real fancy. So first, before we start this, let's just very briefly go over what y equals mx plus b really is. So first off, y equals mx plus b is a form that our equations can come in for a line. So we're talking about lines here. An equation might look like y equals 2x plus 3. So now the pieces in here are very specific. X and y are variables, just because points on a coordinate plane or on a line are written as x comma y, but the two other variables, m and b, have specific meanings. Specifically, m is the slope of the line, and that's something that our problem will actually give us when we see the actual question, and b is our y-intercept. So it's where the graph of the line actually crosses the y-axis. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to plug in the slope, plug in information about the points x and y, and then find the y-intercept so that we can plug it back in and actually find the entire equation. So it might sound complicated now, but when you actually see it in action, I think you'll see it. So here we go. Excuse me. So let's actually do an example here. So what you get on Standard Quiz Question number 1, in addition to the directions, is you get a point, for example, maybe negative 3 comma 5, and you get the slope of a line. So they tell you the slope. And for this example, let's just go with 4. So what we want to do is we want to turn this information here into the equation of this line. So what are we going to do? Well, to start off with, I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. So that's going to be my place I keep going back to. So I'm going to use that form. So first, take advantage of my many colored sharpies here. M is our slope. So in order to plug in information about that, we need to see what the slope is. Well, thankfully, they actually tell us that in the problem. They tell me right here that the slope is 4. So when I go to write this equation, I can make it a little bit more informative by plugging in 4 for m. So our equation is no longer just mx plus b, it's 4x plus b, because 4 is our slope. Okay, now, second way we can start to simplify this is we can use this point here. So negative 3 comma 5, well, the first and second coordinates stand for the x and y respectively, so we're going to plug those into our equation right here and then eventually solve for b. So 5 is y, so there's 5. It's equal to our slope still there. You don't realize how hard it is to juggle all these markers, by the way. Then our x value is negative 3, so I'm going to plug that in as well. And then, of course, the plus b remains. We haven't done anything with that yet. So there we go. What you notice is at this point, we no longer have x and y and b as variables, we just have b. So what we need to do now is just solve for b and find out what that number is. So that's not too bad. So 5 equals, well, 4 times negative 3 is going to be negative 12, all plus b. And then in order to solve for b, I need to get it alone. So I'm going to make a 0 with the 12. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So there's my 0. It's going to be 17 equals b. So celebration, we have b equals 17. Unfortunately, that's not the end of our problem. We want to write the equation of the line. So this is only the y-intercept. So we need to take that information and plug it back up here. So bringing it all together, it's still going to look like y equals mx plus b, but with our more specific information. So y equals 4x, because 4 is our slope, plus our b value, or y-intercept, of 17. So our final answer is y equals 4x plus 17. And that is the equation. So our answer is always going to look something like this. We'll always have y and x in there, as well as the other information. Okay, so taking that for a second, let's look at one more example before we let it go. So let's go with, I'm going to throw the other markers to the side because I'm just going to screw that up. So, second example, let's go with the point, I don't know, 2 comma 5. And we'll use as our slope negative 1/2. So I'm just making numbers up. So here we go. So to start off, we're going to use y equals mx plus b form. So keeping that in mind, that's where we're going. Let's start by plugging in the slope. So the slope is m, so I'm going to plug it in right there. So no longer mx, it'll be negative 1/2 x plus b. And now I need to use the fact that this point, 2, 5, is actually my x and y values. So y is 5 equals negative 1/2 times 2, because 2 is my x value, plus b. And again, if that step is kind of unclear, you can think about it. This was x before, this was y before. Now they're 2 and 5 from our point. Now in order to solve this, I've got to find b. So 5 equals negative 1/2 times 2. 1/2 of 2 is 1, and it's going to be negative. So negative 1 plus b. Now I've got to make a 0 to get b alone. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. This will give me 6 equals b. So once again, it's exciting. We got our b value, our y-intercept, but we need to actually find it. So our final equation, negative 1/2 x plus my y-intercept, which is 6. And so there's our equation. So hopefully in this time, you've added a little bit more understanding for this question. You remember some of this from last term when you guys were all pretty good at it. And again, hopefully standard quiz question number 1 this week will be a lot more exciting and involve less crossing out for me. So thank you. Have a good night.